How you doing, everybody? It's Greg Whitstock, the pond guy. I'm out rebuilding a pond, and I heard from Brian, and he said to me, hey, record a little opening about your event that you're going to be doing at LAL 2021. So I'm going to be there in November. I'm excited. It's been a crazy year. We've been building ponds like crazy. If you're in this industry, you have been going crazy with people improving their homes. But anyway, I missed last year. I'm super excited to get back together with people. I'm not used to doing that with big groups, and Brian does a great job. So if you're not registered for LAL 2021, register. I'm going to be there talking about building a team. I got 130 teammates with me. I still get my hands out. I still got my hands dirty out in the field with these guys, but I'm excited to be in a room learning, because when you stop learning, you stop earning. LAL 2021, I'll see you guys there. I love my job.
You're now listening to the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast. Straightforward, no nonsense business advice. Completely unfiltered. Grow your business. Grow your life. Now, here's your host, Brian Fullerton.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast. It is your host, Brian Fullerton, here, hanging out with you guys, and good morning. Well, happy Friday, or Friday, as we say sometimes here on the show and on Instagram with the stickers. But today we have a Friday Takeover. Really excited about this one. We've got none other than Caleb and Brittany Auman. We got Caleb Auman and Brittany Nicole. Just having some fun there. I don't even know where that came from, but I know where it came from. It came from the Kid Contractor podcast, which Caleb and Brittany Auman, they are contractors. They are hardscapers, landscapers out of the Columbus area, South Columbus area. And I think it's Perry County. Is that right? What Paul Jameson always says, Perry County, Ohio, somewhere around that area. Any which way, awesome people. Okay, we've really got to know the Aumans the last couple of years. They are incredible people, contractors, and just as a family with their 3 kids. We actually FaceTime them just to catch up with the Aumans about every week or two, and they become really good friends of ours behind the scenes, and hopefully they think that we're good friends of theirs, right? So you never know how that goes. But anyway, if you guys are new to the show, our podcast is all about lawns, lessons, life. We're teaching folks how to grow a more successful lawn and landscape business, really any business, I'd argue, in general, because I think you can learn a little bit from this show. We have actually people that work at the corporations that sell the products and services that we all use, the mowers, the trimmers, the blowers. The guys from the companies, they listen to the show. We've got a regular listener, Dan Weingartz, who is the main dude for Weingartz, which is the dealers. He listens to the show sometimes on his commute to the local dealer or the corporate office. So we got so many different folks listening in. We got the corporate folks, we got the dealers, we've got people that are sales reps listening to the show. Shout out to Vince over in Ann Arbor, Michigan, Weingartz. He listens to the show. And so it's really, really cool to have so many different folks from so many different angles and walks of life listening in. Well, guys, we really appreciate the support of you guys listening to the show. I run a lawn and landscape business up here in Metro Detroit, Michigan, Wixom, Michigan, to be specific, 45 minutes west of Metro Detroit. This is our 16th season in business, okay? So it's been a crazy journey. The first 10 years, not so illustrious. The last 4 or 5 years, we're getting better every day, okay? Getting our numbers right, getting our mind right, getting our business right, making some money. It's been a good couple years, okay? The first 10 years sucked. The last couple years have been a lot better, amen? And maybe some of you guys can relate to that as well. So whether you guys have been in business for 10 years or you guys have been in business for 10 minutes, we got something for you with almost every episode that we do on the show. Sometimes they're interviews, sometimes they're solo episodes, sometimes we'll have my wife join, sometimes we get folks from the companies, like I said earlier, that get to join us and let us know what's going on with the corporations and the motherships behind the scene, right? Well, what we've been doing on Friday the last couple of weeks is we've been having some Friday takeovers. And today we're going to have another podcaster, which Caleb and Brittany Auman have the Kid Contractor podcast. They're going to be doing a Friday episode in takeover. Haven't proofed it, haven't listened to it yet. Hopefully they do a banger job. We're just giving people the benefit of a doubt, a vote of confidence. They're podcasters. Hopefully they know how to carry the show, tell some stories. Not so much of all the things they did right was my only request for all the different guests that we've had on our Friday takeovers is, hey, we're always talking business. We're always talking success and how to kill it, how to crush it, how to make money, right? God bless. That's awesome. We all need that, okay? I like the yuck stories. I like the failing stories. I like the stories where you buried a mower in the backyard and you didn't know what to do to get it out. Like, what did you do? You know, if you bid a landscape job and it was 15 grand and you realized, on day 6 that you already spent 15 grand and you still have another week of finishing this thing up with materials and labor and you lost 4 grand. Happens all the time. It's not fun. It's not cool, but you learn from those stories, right? Jeremiah Jennings, we had a guest on just a couple of Fridays ago, and he said, you don't learn from your wins and your successes more often than not. You learn from your mistakes and your failures. And that's true. That's at least my personal experience. I don't always learn when I win because I just learned that I won. But when I fail, I learn about all the different things that I did wrong and how we can make sure to minimize that from the next time, right? So hopefully we're going to hear a little bit more from Caleb Brittany Auman about the Hardscape Academy, about their business down in, like I said, Columbus area, and just get to hear a little bit from their story. By the way, have you guys been enjoying the Friday podcast takeovers? We've had Julio Tomei with Lawn Care Business Success podcast. He did a banger job talking about getting stuck in a backyard with a black bear, like he was going into a backyard, saw a black bear roaming around, locked the gate so he could go mow this property. He's over in BC, Canada area. Locks the gate so the bear can't get in. Then the bear jumps over the fence and is in the backyard. A black bear is in the backyard, fenced in property. And then Julio realizes, I just locked the gate. I locked myself in. So he's talking about how he's jumping over a fence. The bear's jumping over a fence. Thankfully, it didn't chase him and maul him down. He also told another funny story about how he got his mower stuck on this edge and cliff of a backyard where he got stuck on a fence post and the mower's teeter-tottering over the edge with a 12-foot drop off to the neighbor's property. I'm thinking to myself, yeah, been there, don't want to have to do some of those things, but I've had crazy weird experiences like that. But you know what? They're fun stories. They've been very funny stories. We've had a handful of people on so far on Friday Takeover. So if you guys haven't listened to the last couple podcasts, I feel like we've been on a hot streak, man. We've had some great solo episodes. We've had some great guest interviews. And me personally, selfishly, I'm enjoying the Friday Takeovers. My wife and I, we had a baby about 6-7 weeks ago. This is just a way for me to pass the baton. Hey, if you guys like the Friday episodes and the guys that are doing them, go over to their podcast afterwards. Would you subscribe to it? Would you check it out? Would you support them? And I'm sure they'll give you the sauce on the rest of their podcasts. So, all right, well, let's do this really quick. We're going to kick it over to Marty, Mr. Producer. He is the show host. He is, well, I guess not the host. He is the show producer. That's what it is. I don't have a background in broadcasting like my friend Paul Jameson. That's why Paul's always got the most slick, smooth transitions ever, because he's got a professional background in radio. So if anybody's ever going to do a banger job with those transitions, it's my friend Paul. And we all know how well Paul does his transitions, right? So that's why he is the best in the biz at hosting. And that's why he's got the best transitions. Well, we got the best producer that we both share the same producer, and a couple other guys that have podcasts as well. And that is Marty, Mr. Producer, down in the ATL. So we're going to hear from Marty, Mr. Producer, here with one of our transitions, which is I'm going to get a sip of water, and then I'm going to actually listen to this podcast episode with you guys real time. All right. So, guys, let's kick it over to Marty, Mr. Producer, down in the ATL. We're going to hear from today's show sponsors, show announcements, probably a couple plugs for some live events in GIE Plus Expo and Launchpreneur Academy and everything that's going on in the greater lawn care community. You know what, guys? We appreciate you. We thank you so much for listening to the show. I said this on a couple previous episodes. September was our best month ever with the podcast. So thank you to all of you guys that are leaving the ratings, the reviews, downloading, listening religiously, and just committed to the podcast. Hopefully it's helping you guys grow. And we super appreciate the reciprocation with helping us get those ratings, reviews, those downloads, and quite honestly, making this the best month ever we've ever had with our podcast downloads. So thank you to all of you guys. And you know what? Can't wait to see what we all do together as a team in October. So let's do this. Let's kick it over to Marty, Mr. Producer. We're going to hear a little bit more from Caleb and Brittany Auman with Auman Landscape LLC right after this.
Calling all landscape pros who want to get serious about healthy turf and a healthier bottom line. It's time to throw down new innovations. Built on 50 years of proven agronomic proficiency, Let's Go fertilizers, control products, seed, and equipment are engineered to produce more resilient turf. We'll continue to bring new technologies, so no matter the day, you'll always bring your A game. Upgrade and outperform with Let's Go. Visit site1.com/letsgo today to learn more.
Don't look now, but some joker just stole your gear. Should have gotten Proven Locks, where Brian's 10 saves 10% at provenlocks.com. Now back to the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to Fullerton Unfiltered Podcast with your host Caleb Auman and Brittany Nicole. Caleb Auman and Brittany Auman here. Say hi, Brittany.
Hey guys.
It's the first podcast we've ever done in our entire life, aside from the other podcasts we've done. Brian, we've been blessed to become pretty decent friends with Brian and Liz here over.
I don't think after this we'll be friends anymore.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we dropped the ball in friend category here. Baby, they had the beautiful baby, and of course we say the obligatory, well, let us know if we can help you out with anything or whatever, and what the heck are we going to do 3.5 hours away? So a couple weeks later, Brian and this isn't related to this, but Brian says, hey, I'm trying to do a guest host thing on the podcast, on the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast for a little while, and it's going to help me take some stuff off my plate. Would you guys do an episode? And I'm like, yeah, sure, it sounds fun. We'll do that. And Talia Farrow is going to be on there, lawn care rookie.
Yeah,
Paul
everyone else I
Jameson,
think has done theirs.
Committers.
Except for us.
So the one thing we could do to help them with the baby and help Brian and Liz with the baby, to take some, give them maybe at least an extra hour and a half or two. We just don't do it. It's been 3 weeks since Brian asked us to do this because we're such dirt bags.
Probably longer than that.
Oh,
it's
God,
so bad.
We're scum of the earth. So Caleb and Brittany Auman here. We own a landscape design build company in Southeast Ohio, beautiful Fairfield County, Ohio, as Paul Jameson always brings to mind here. And we're going to talk a few things today about, Brittany, I don't know when Brian's such a professional podcaster. He says, all right, well, hey, let's take it over to Miss Producer and we'll do that. Man, we don't know how to do any of that stuff. It's going to be a mess. It's going to sound like you ever heard of that one podcast called Kid Contractor Podcast? Oh my God, what a train wreck that thing is.
Yeah, kind of similar to that video
terrible.
called Gas in the Eye. Have
Have
you
we
heard
should
that
do?
on YouTube?
You know what we should do is just turn this into an entire pitch fest for all of the stuff we've got going on. Brian, take that. Of course, I guess he doesn't have to release it ultimately, so I guess we're kind of hosed there. Could backfire. We got to slip it in. Maybe he'll just listen to we got to behave for like the first 30, 45 seconds here. And he'll think like, oh, well, they're actually going to run a professional podcast. And then we send this sucker off the rails. Kind of like around the bend in the train tracks. You never know what's around there. But we're going to talk about...
Mr. Producer says, are you sure, Brian?
Yeah, Mr. Producer's like, I would strongly advise against that. So we're going to talk about, so we run a landscape design build company in Southeast Ohio. We specialize and primarily perform hardscape construction, hardscape installation, paver patios, brick pavers, retainer walls, pavers, plants, walls, hashtag pavers, plants, walls. And then we know the other half of our company does, it's Auman Environmental, and it does a lot of storm water management. So the drains you see in parking lots, we dig those up and repair them for a lot of the big box stores you know and love. Retention ponds, dredging, riprap, stuff like that. Really cool work. We travel the state of Ohio for that. So if you have any property management services need that in the state of Ohio, we travel all over Ohio for that stuff. Oh gosh, this is gonna. Brian's like, hey, make it funny, keep it lighthearted. Well, how about a pitch fest instead, Brian?
He literally asked nothing of us, ever.
I know. And by the way, I'm on hour 15 of the day here. We've been going hard. Hey, time for another plug here, Britt. We've been going hard shooting some training videos. All right. So anyways, just long day like all you folks know all about, I'm sure. And that's how it goes in the entrepreneur world. And what Brian did ask us to talk about was maybe our top 3 business lessons. So I've been in contracting for 20 years. For those of you that don't know my story, I've been in contracting for 20 years. I ran a company 10 years prior to the one I'm in now. So if we can do the math, hold on here. Yeah, that was 10 years ago too. And so 10 years ago, I crashed my first company that was in business for 10 years prior, right?
Which started out as a lawn care company.
That equals 20, right?
It does.
Okay, cool. So that equals 20. And see why I failed my first company here, because I didn't know my
20-ish
numbers. Or as Keith Kalfa says, I didn't know my... Oh, okay, you weren't at Launchpreneur Live, the first one, when Keith did that. Good job, Britt, picking that up. Because I didn't know my worth, as Keith Kalfa said at Launchpreneur Live. That was his mantra for his presentation. It was fantastic,
Most
by the way.
people don't.
He had the audience chanting, I didn't know my worth, and talking about raising your prices. And my caveat, my back end to that would be, yes, you probably need to raise your prices. We all do. But you don't do it blindly either. You've got to know why you raise your prices, how much to raise your prices, and what that raise in pricing is going to do for you and your business. It's not just, hey, we're going to put alloy wheels on our freaking zero turns, which is madness, we're going to invest that money back into the company in something that just doesn't look cool. We're going to put it into, this goes for the hardscape world too.
Just because you have an increase in
folks.
paycheck doesn't mean a change in lifestyle.
Dave Ramsey has just entered the building, folks. Yeah, and that is something Dave Ramsey would say, and that is one of the things that got me out of my first crashed company as Britt and I started to date. Right as that thing was kind of the rudder of the ship was just going underwater, and she decided, hey, I'm going to tie myself to this freaking thing and ride it to the bottom.
Swimmer.
Ride it to the bottom of this idiot boyfriend of mine, and so we closed that company as that thing came to an end, and she started a new company legally and all above board and all that stuff, and we started performing work as Auman Landscape LLC. And so after crashing my first company 10 years, I learned a lot. And then we learned a lot more coming through in the first, 5 years of that, right, Britt? And that's something we say, this podcast is going to jump all over the place. Holy crap, this is going to go everywhere. Which you're probably not used to because you listen to a professional podcast like the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast with your
Brian's
host,
is
Brian
like very
Fullerton.
polished, and he has like points A, B, and C, some takeaways, and then ours is like... well, whatever comes to mind for this 5 minutes, and then 30 seconds into that, it changes still. So,
which tells you something of like how bad of a people we are. He was so hard up, he asked us to be hosts, and we still couldn't come through with it, Brittany. We're terrible people. We're awful. So 10 years into the business now, looking back, there's so much to unpack here when we're going to do this to like a top three business lessons. But Britt, I'm just as a bullet point. What's your top three? And I'll say what my top three is. Then we'll.
No, you start.
Oh God,
Lessons are like pivotal moments.
A huge. What?
Like, are we talking like actual lesson learned or pivotal moments or something important?
Kind of your meta picture, the big picture takeaways of the top three lessons of the past. With you and I, really 12 years now. It's crazy.
You have to be able to delegate.
Interesting. Now, would you say that's number one or like number three? Now, is that for growth or just lessons in general, you think?
I think lessons in general. I think you have to be able to accept what maybe you're not a professional at or what you're not an expert at. I know, when you are growing the company, you're trying to keep everything in-house and you're trying to do everything yourself so you can save all this money and to invest it back into your company. But then... like for accounting, for example, I am not a great bookkeeper, and we hired out a bookkeeper, and that changed how I did business this year. So I think being able to delegate is important. And now you're distracting me with...
I was trying to shoot a story, and I was going to tag Brian Fullerton in it saying we're podcasting for his show, and now I couldn't find the download button, so now it's just a mess. Go ahead, sorry. To prove to Brian our loyalty, my liege.
But I was talking about delegating our accounting stuff over to the accountant this year, or to a bookkeeper that looks at our books weekly instead of, quarterly or whatever, which for most businesses that's fine, but we have a lot of transactions going in and out, and it just became overwhelming. So there's little things like that I think you can delegate to make you be able to do your craft, as Andy Mulder says, or, whatever your services that you're providing.
Yeah, and let's give some more context here too, by the way, as far as where we're at as a company. We have 5 full-time guys in the field. We're going to do about $1 million in business. It may hit that, it may exceed it, it may be slightly under. I'm not sure where we're tracking at the moment. I think September's been a little sketchy here. And that's a whole nother podcast as far as what we're doing there. And then, and so we've been completely broke zero. I went bankrupt in 2008. Right, late 2009, winter 2009, which is insane. Is that right?
Yeah, the year I graduated college, you filed bankruptcy that month.
And I was going to the School of Hard Knocks, and I'd been living there for I was kind of like a resident of the School of Hard Knocks for about, I could argue about 15 years probably, but
you graduated.
But did I graduate? Have I really made it out? You think? I made it out the hood. Yeah, son. Hallelujah. We're all just trying to get out the trap, aren't we? So to give more context to that, so we've had $0 in the bank account, and we've had way more negative. We've had more liabilities than we've had assets, and now we just have all liabilities. No, not really. Actually, that was supposed to be funnier than it came out, but it wasn't. No, now things are pretty solid. Praise the Lord. After and kind of what I refer to our company as, as you can read in the book by Paul Jameson, just released.
Best business practices for landscapers.
Yes, by Paul Jameson of the Green Industry Podcast.
You can buy it on Amazon.
You can buy it on Amazon, actually. So, what was I going to say?
I don't know. We're back to the Pitch Fest podcast.
What was Pitch Fest? That'd be kind of a funny podcast name. Would it be the Pitch Fest? Pitch Fest podcast. What was I going to say though? That Paul. We're an overnight success 20 years later. That's kind of like been my mantra. I think we kind of really came into our own though. What in the past 3 to 4 years, we really kind of, I think, hit some
over
stride.
the 10 years, we've made a lot of right decisions and we've made a lot of wrong decisions. And how you correct those wrong decisions is how your company grows and moves forward.
Right. True intelligence is the ability to correct error. And that's been a saying that I've picked up here in the past 3 months that I've absolutely fallen in love with. And it's probably, as you know, from a good buddy of mine, Jordan Peterson, dear friend.
Thank goodness he hasn't asked you to do his podcast for him.
You know what I'd do to get on his podcast?
I don't want to know.
My buddy Jordan Peterson, and actually I say this facetiously, which is a good word here. I'm joking. I don't know Jordan Peterson. Well, I'm pals with Jordan Peterson. He just doesn't know it. Pretty much. That's kind of how that goes. I totally fanboy over that guy. Pretty much, if you haven't heard of him, look up any topic of anything that you're struggling with. Let's say
alcoholism.
Geez, you're going to go hard like that out the gate? Okay. Alcoholism, Jordan Peterson on YouTube. Or look up look up assertiveness, Jordan Peterson. And the guy's probably one of the most brilliant mainstream thinkers of the 21st century. I think he'll be up there. History will serve him well, but it's once all of society has crashed because nobody listened to him. I'm a Jordan Peterson evangelist. I'm probably almost more of an evangelist for him than I am Jesus Christ, which is a horrible thing of. Yeah, I mean, I do I mention Jesus on the podcast more or Jordan Peterson on our own podcast?
Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, so I should probably change that. So y'all need Jesus. Don't forget that. And you need Jesus and Jordan Peterson. Which he has a fantastic,
and the Kid Contractor podcast,
and he's not even and that's the thing about him, he's not even a evangelist. He has the most interesting perspective of religion. It's really fascinating, actually, his take on religion. I love it. I think it's really interesting. I think it's a really honest look at religion. It's very cool. I digress though, right, Brent? This thing about over yet? We done?
No.
What are we, 3 minutes?
3
minutes in? Oh, geez. We've covered a lot of ground in 13 minutes, though. Holy mackerel. This thing's been, as Liz Fullerton would say, a bangor. She has some weird ways of pronouncing things. I don't know. I always laugh at Liz or Ukrainian East Bloc Yugoslavian accent thing she's got going on there. I don't know. Maybe it's not that. But we love you, Liz. We're joking, of course. Or are we? Maybe we're just being jerks on the podcast. But now we have the platform. It's
I'm just letting Caleb talk.
Folks, I'm on hour 15 of the day, and it's been a hard go today. We have gone, actually all week, we have gone hard this week. So harder than normal, I suppose, and with higher stress levels. But wham, woe is me.
I don't necessarily know it's
awesome.
harder. It's just
a
different level of stress this week.
That's fair. That's a good point, too.
Okay, so what's one of your business takeaways in the past 100 years?
Yeah, because I'm 100 years old. You can always go like the base level stuff of
and know
pricing,
your numbers,
right?
blah,
Knowing
blah,
your
blah,
numbers.
blah.
But I tell you, it's so. Brian had a podcast on. It's probably a year ago, but talking about how cliche that comment is anymore of like you got to know your numbers, but damn it, you got to know your numbers. I mean, there is just no ways, and it really comes down to pretty simple things. How many hours a year do you work? And I'm talking not the 80-hour weeks. I'm talking on average because that's what you got to base your overhead off of. And it's generally going to be about 1,500 billable hours a year per guy, and you got to divide your overhead by that. That's pretty much what it comes down to. And really, let's break it down to simple numbers just to get you thinking if you don't think about this stuff this way. Let's say you work 1,000 hours a year, which, whatever, in some climates, it is kind of crazy like that. And let's just say you want to make $50,000 a year or $30,000 a year just as a salary. That means right there off the bat, you've got to charge $35 an hour or $50 an hour just to make I'm talking profit. And no. I'm not even talking profit. I'm talking salary, 35 to 50,000 a year. That doesn't include company profit. Company profit is on top of that, by the way. A lot of people get that twisted. Company profit is what is left over at the end of the year after everyone and everything is paid. So that includes the owner's salary. So keep that in mind, folks, when you're figuring this stuff out. So your truck costs, your truck payments, and all that stuff has got to get figured into that hourly overhead. So how much dollars you're turning per hour per week is a big deal. And then and also too, don't forget. So we're at the profit margin is what true company profits. What's left over, you could say by the month, by the week, by the day, if you really got your stuff together. Knowing what it costs to operate by the day, your phone bill into that 1,000 hours, your truck payment into that 1,000 hours. That's not a great way to do it, but we're talking just kind of big picture here, folks. Oh, well, I own a lot of stuff cash. Doesn't matter. That stuff has still got it. That overhead is, you've still got to buy a new truck. A truck ain't going to last forever. That string trimmer ain't going to last forever. That $700 Volkswagen engine backpack blower that you strap on your back every day that was $800 from our friends at Echo. That thing's going to wear out too, or get stolen. And so you got to factor in replacing those every 2 or 3 years. And that all has got to get figured into your overhead pricing. And before you know it, you're like, oh, wow, I thought I was doing great at $45 an hour. In reality, if I want to make a career and a living at this, I need to be at $57 an hour or $77 or $105, whatever the heck it is.
I think that was one of the most defeating things starting out and like not really understanding business fully was working so hard to pay something off or to pay cash for something just to find out that when you finally paid it off, it's probably almost time to buy a new one because you've worn it out to death to where it won't even make it for another year. And so then if you haven't been charging the right amount and you haven't been saving that extra cash to replace that when it's past its life cycle.
Yeah. And so
that was really hard for me to understand.
Yeah, and
it's
planned that way, by the way. The engineers, the financiers, all those people that sell brand new equipment, they get that. They know that by the time the machine is paid off, if you stretch it out on payments, it's the planned obsolescence, theory, right? Or planned obsolescence.
That's why you can't get a 10-year truck loan.
That's a great point. That's a fantastic, man, that's exactly what the point of that is. That's why you can't stretch a truck out over a house payment or over 30 years. Is because a truck isn't worth that for that long, but the truck is barely worth that for 3 to 5 to set. Well, some truck payments now are 72 months and some craziness like that. Be careful with that stuff, folks. If you're doing that kind of craziness, be careful with it.
If you're doing 72 months, you probably don't need that truck.
Well, you know what I would say about that is
unless it was like a chipper truck where
if
it's directly
a dump
making
truck
money.
But if it's a platinum freaking King Ranch gold wheels,
drive your family to the fair.
Yeah, like that kind of stuff is nonsense. If you don't have, Dave Ramsey says if you're buying vehicles like that, you need to have, what was his thing? You need to have like at least 100,000. No, to buy brand new vehicles like that, you need to have $1 million net worth is what his statement was. Like that was pretty crazy. And we're not huge Dave Ramseyites. Hell, we've got I don't know, probably 10% of the company is debt. You're right. We probably got $100,000 in equipment debt. And again, that's on $1 million business, and we don't like to stretch out much over 10% of gross revenue with debt. That's just not and we could probably go way deeper than that. We just don't want to.
We don't go into debt for things that don't make us money.
And that's 1,000%. But we also don't go into debt beyond that's just kind of our threshold is 10, 12%. We just don't want to be. And we could swing a lot more than that payment-wise. We just don't want to. We could shut down for a couple months or actually way longer than that with cash reserves, which is the point of a stable business. And you got to get yourself there. And it takes time, by the way. That's the thing with the overnight success. Britt, how long, sitting where we're at now.
It probably wasn't until maybe 5 years ago that we could shut down comfortably.
Right, and not freak out or stress, right?
For the winter and
which
stuff.
is a whole nother thing too with winter budgeting. You've got to recover that overhead. So you've got to make sure that all that overhead is recovered in 10 months or 8 months or whatever your growing season is that you actually work. So you've got to stretch all those bills out into those hours that you're only going to work for 8 months. Because I know some guys are like, well, I take the winter off. It's like, well, you better make sure all that overhead's recovered in those 8 months, or you're going to find yourself every winter wondering how the hell you're going to get through that winter. And when you're young and single, that's one thing. When you start getting family or crew on the lines, which is family you're not related to that you got to take care of, things get to be a different stress level. And you want to make sure you're not over leveraged. That's just the big lesson of it. So it's like, if you're starting out a company, yeah, is a platinum level truck the dopest thing on earth? Yeah, platinum trucks are awesome. Like my Denali HD that I want someday, yeah, that truck's pretty dope. I really like that thing. Can I justify a $70,000 work truck at the moment? That's my work/personal trucks. I'm not in the field very much anymore. No, we're not to that level. We're not to that status level. And I don't know actually how much money I'll have to have in the bank and doing sales to really justify a $70,000 work truck. Because right now my truck's worth like $25,000 or $30,000. It's nothing too crazy. And this all coming from a guy still, by the way, folks, that when we were digging ourselves out of me being bankrupt and stuff, we went and built a patio for a guy, this little, what was his name? What was his name? Tim. We'll just leave it at Tim. Actually, I remember his name now, but it was Tim. And we were this young couple.
That was one of the longest weekends.
It was so terrible. But this old blue Chevy 3/4 ton pickup truck.
I did like the truck.
Was in. I just wish it was 4-wheel drive, but that truck would have been the awesomest.
But it was the nicest thing we had.
It was terrible because that truck was a pile of garbage.
But we built a patio. We built a patio, right?
Yeah, it was $2,000. The truck was like $2,200. It was a pile of garbage. Which actually, for a pile of garbage, is actually a pretty solid truck. But it was so ugly. It was so stupid. And it seemed like a billion. Might as well have been a billion. It might as well have been my Chevy Denali. That sounds like I know what I'm talking about. My GMC Denali. It might as well have been that to me now, because it was like, which I hope, which is the trajectory we're on and the goal, folks. That's the goal. The reason I'm saying this, that's the goal. The goal is to get from there, where we're talking about, to where we're at now, and from now to where we're going, where we're a Denali. We laugh about paying $70,000 cash for a Denali someday. And we're like, remember when we bought that Denali? Wasn't that big a deal? Oh my gosh. And we thought, and we'll harken back
after that comes the helicopter.
And we'll harken back to that. And folks, again, this is all, by the way, with being 10 years behind in my investing for retirement. This is a big deal. I'm not going to buy a Denali until I really feel like my retirement is set up, because I'm 10 years behind that, because I was an idiot for 10 freaking years of my life and I'm way underinvested.
And you can invest in retirement in different ways. Like, we decided to try investment properties along with our Roth IRA.
Crypto, with a lot of crypto.
Yeah.
Well, we can talk crypto another day. And by the way, folks, I don't see crypto. Let me do a caveat here with crypto. I don't understand how crypto bought with, for you crypto heads out there, I don't understand how crypto purchase with fiat money is still worth anything. At the end of the day, I buy crypto because I just hope it goes up. I don't think it's actually a great store of value. I still think food, gold, guns, and God are like pretty much about as good as it gets. Jordan Peterson, of course. Our faith lies in Jesus and Jordan Peterson. It's probably blasphemy to an extent.
Probably
somewhere.
So.
I'm pretty sure probably lightning bolt strike the office here in a little bit.
Maybe I'll have a dream about it tonight.
Oh God! Speaking of dreams, man, have I had some goofy dreams lately? I had a dream I spoke to the devil last night, folks. It was crazy, and I quoted him scripture, and he left me alone. It was awesome. Now we sound like some real Bible beating, Bible thumping evangelists here. Boy, I am about the worst example for someone to proclaim to be a follower of Jesus Christ. Oh, my Lord.
I wouldn't say worst.
Well, that's fair, too. Yeah, there's probably some other worse examples in history, right? Oh, boy, this podcast. Where's it at, Britt? We're probably done now. We're at, what mile mark are we at now? 2 minutes? 25 minutes? Oh, my gosh. Brian, this is so much work. How do you do this all the time?
How does Paul do it? He does it.
Paul does it 5 days a week. He's a psychopath, is what he is. He's crazy. Folks, you're catching me on Thursday.
You've already said 15-hour
week,
blah,
15
blah,
hour. I haven't put 15-hour days in the field. I know. Well, that's the thing. I haven't put 15-hour field day. I put in 15-hour days all the time, but it's mostly office and running around with clients and answering 1,000 DMs a day at Auman Landscape on our Instagram channel. Answering a billion DMs and trying to pump out our own podcast shows. Brian texting me relentlessly like the fanboy he is, and having to respond to Brian. And
I think our group text is mostly Brian and I talking.
He chats like a girl. My goodness. So, So anyway, so we say all this stuff coming back around to like this blue truck that was $2,200. We had $1,000 freaking bucks, I think, cash on hand at the time. And this is 2011, maybe 2010,
yeah, maybe 10,
and
probably 10.
And so this truck's sitting out in this guy's yard, and I stopped and talked to him. And Britt and I are young, and I'm like smoking hot, and Britt's smoking hot as well. I don't know where that was actually going, but like we're this cute
Just
young,
so everyone knows, we were smoking hot.
man, we were in good shape, like yeah. But like we were this probably like this cute young couple that wanted to buy this truck that seemed like $1 million, and we were talking, and the guy, we were talking like what we do for work and all that, and he's like, well, I got a patio I need built. And so long story short, we built this crappy little like 10 by 10 pad. I say crappy. We built this little, it was just this little 10 by 10 pad is all it was. But her and I that weekend, what was the deal? He let us take the truck. We gave him $1,000. He let us take the truck home, which I thought was insane on his part. Like, you don't know us. You know, it was $1,000. You know, at the same time, he's like, well, you take truck, whatever. He's like,
it's not like we had the title.
Which was such an interesting thing because Tim said, he goes, I was like, well, you don't know us from Adam. You can't, you know, what if we don't come back? He's like, I can see it in your eyes. You'll come back. And I'm like, you are a madman. But he was right. He somehow read into us that we were decent folks, and we came back that next day or in whatever it was, 2 or 3 days, whatever the hell it was, to build this little pad for him. It was 1 billion degrees out. You remember that? It was so hot out. It was a blistering Ohio summer. Humidity was like 144%. And we put in this little patio by ourselves. We bought our little compactor we had, and like
our used compactor.
Did we have the ditch witch then? That little beat to death. We had no loaders. God, we were doing stuff so wrong. Oh, jeez. But yet doing it so right. You know, we were learning stuff the hard way, and
learned lessons.
Learned lots of lessons, right? And
the truck. We had the truck for a few years. It's not like it was.
Yeah,
just something to get us
if you
through
dig
the
far
summer.
enough back in my Instagram, you'll see that truck at some point. I should probably that truck is probably worthy of putting up on some photo somewhere, and it's
on our Facebook. It was on our Facebook page in the background.
Why would we put that publicly out anywhere?
Well, it was a cool picture at the time of it was our like cover photo on Facebook for a while. It was in the back of the patio we built at Rock Mill Brewery.
Oh God. It's a wonder anybody hired us to do anything, but we're probably too cheap at the same time. And God, we were so inefficient too. We were we didn't have enough loaders. We didn't have the right mentality of efficiency at that time of like the right machines to take labor off. But we were so financially scared to death too. It was a huge thing. It was holding us back so
once
bad.
You file bankruptcy, you're scared to
it's
spend
pretty
a
scary.
dime.
Yeah. And, you know, you got other creditors still outside of that bugging you that you're trying to work off. You know, so the reason
the moral of the story is everyone has a starting point.
Right.
And what you do from there and, you know, how you grow, how you succeed, that's on you.
And there's folks with, you know, $150,000 in credit card debt or student loan debt or medical debt or whatever. And it's a long slog, folks, to get up out of that. It's tough. I guess is what we're saying.
We worked a second job. We worked in an ice cream shop.
Oh, geez. We did so much crazy stuff.
We worked on the weekends. We did tons of work ourselves. We did all of our repairs ourselves. I'm not saying this is the right way because it also slowed our growth down.
Right.
You have to have a plan. And whatever your plan is, as long as you get from point A to point B in that plan, and you know exactly what you're doing and you stick to it, that's fine. This is what we did. Might not work for you, might not work for someone else, but we had a plan. We knew we needed to pay off this bankruptcy debt and some other bills, and then our lives would be free. And it really was. Once we paid off all of the stupid debt, we'll call it.
Yeah, which was, like
that freed us up personally. And then...
Yeah, that was a big hindrance, was personal debt, which is something we don't have anymore other than the house. We have no personal debt. We don't believe in that.
And really, like, as crazy as it sounds, like, once that was done... It was literally so freeing. Like, it was easy to save money then because you weren't paying.
Which, like Danny Mulders and Dave Ramsey would say, well, imagine what that feels like if you got out of company debt, too.
Right.
But, you know, I don't feel like that's that's a chain around my neck like I did the other stuff did. Because it's such a small factor of what.
Well, I mean, you have to weigh it out.
Percentage.
So say you have a $500 skid steer payment or whatever.
And by the way, yeah, we're still catching up too from mistakes of the past. We're behind. We're not behind financially, but we're behind. How would you say that? How would you say that? Because we're not behind financially on bills or anything. What I'm saying is like, I'm 10 years behind where I should be, Frank. I guess that's the way you know what I mean?
Caleb thinks that the company should be 10 years ahead of where it is.
Yeah, I should be where I'm at now 10 years ago if I wasn't an idiot. But I'm an idiot, or I was an idiot. I was more of an idiot then than I am now. And so I'm 10 years behind. But it just is what it is, and I've got to accept that and hammer down now.
But one of the only ways for us to become more efficient, to make more money, was to go into debt for some equipment. Because we were doing everything really stupid. We were doing it by hand.
We were spending tens of thousands of dollars a year in rental equipment.
Spending 3 times the amount of time we should on a job because we were doing it by hand without help. And the other reason we had to do this is because we didn't have a young group of guys, and at the time they were young.
Yeah,
but
relatively, it's
relatively speaking.
But, yeah.
But I've always said, like, our foreman's not going to be able to is not going to be able to lay pavers forever. And so we've constantly been upgrading equipment to try to keep him from on his hands and knees, laying pavers with his back all day long. We try to take all of that off as much as we possibly can off of our guys. So when you go into debt, you just have to figure out why. And we were renting skid steers to try to make jobs easier, and we were renting them more a month than what the payment was a month. And that's kind of when we knew that it was time to buy one.
Just like, man, this debt-free thing is cool, but like, we're killing ourselves here trying to get a rental machine.
And that all plays back to your point. Well, here, this all come full circle, is we weren't charging, you're not charging enough to cover all your costs and save money to buy a piece of equipment.
Right. Yeah. Which is a challenging thing at that point, because not only do you if you don't buy the machine and put that money directly towards that machine, you're having to make enough money to pay for the rental and bank money on top of that to save up to buy them. It's a tough game. It's a tough gig, and it's 1,000% doable. You're just going to get there slower. Debt accelerates you getting there. It also accelerates you to bankruptcy again if you're not careful and if you're an idiot. And I know people have gone too deep, even modern times, with the economy being like it is, just out of control. I know people have just gone too deep in and weren't ready mentally. What's the word I'm looking for? Like at maturation, at maturity levels that they were ready for, $10,000 a month in equipment payments and crazy madness like that. Like, that's a big deal. Like, a skid steer is going to be $1,000 a month. Some trucks are $1,000 a month. So like, by the time you set up just a crew of stuff to do it, you could be at $5,000 a month in payments plus your overhead, of 100, and just little stuff would just kill you, insurance. God, I mean, it's just running a business is the craziest thing.
I think it's important when you're out, like, for those of you out there considering a big purchase, a lot of people make big purchases at the end of the year, getting ready for next year or just to upgrade their fleet or whatever. I always enjoy when we're going to this is just to talk to someone about it, somebody outside of the company, tell them what we plan on using it for, what are you doing?
Sorry, just distracted on my phone. I want to check the time, and then there was a headline on there that was, jeez. I would say it, but it's just going to sound like another plug fest, so I'm going to have to forego, Brittany. I'm sorry, baby. Continue, please.
Okay.
Cool. Silence is golden on a podcast is not actually the advice that they say.
What I was saying is that you should talk to someone about it, talk to a mentor about your purchase. Make sure that everything makes sense. And, maybe they're like, will you put your phone down?
No, hold on. No, I'm bringing something up that's relevant to that. So go. Ugh. Yeah, you know what I'm bringing up, and it's good and it's solid. But at the same time, like, those folks might not get where you're at. And we had a mentor, by the way, that wasn't fully on board, that didn't understand that kind of didn't actually give us, like, the right encouraging advice.
No, but I'm talking about, like, should you buy or rent a piece of equipment?
Yeah, I'm still saying that. You imagine, because you go to somebody that's a like hardcore Dave Ramseyite, you're like, no, pay, save up somehow, for $50,000 or whatever, and kill yourself over the next year to do it. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm saying there's everything great with that. And if you do that, you'll be that much more justly rewarded. But
It might take you longer.
No, it's not might. It is. It will take you longer. Here's a clip I play all the time that I absolutely love. When you're sharing your vision and your goals and your dreams with people, this is something to keep in mind. And this is why it's important to kind of gather opinions, maybe 2 or 3 places on such a thing, right, Britt? Like, should we buy this machine? Well, there are some folks that may not see what you see. And I could tell you right now, I could give you an example where I gave someone, or I was not so optimistic with another business that I didn't see their vision. Now, at the same time, they didn't communicate it to me well enough, but I wasn't super positive on the direction they were going, and I missed the mark there by a freaking mile. So here's this soundbite I love. We'll get Brian kicked off the internet for using sound bites. I've done it on my own and haven't gotten booted, so this should work. Okay, here we go.
Share your dreams and your goals with everybody. Like, everybody doesn't deserve to have that type of access to you. Everybody doesn't deserve to be able to treat something that's so fragile because they won't treat it with the same care like you will. They won't see the things that you see when you dream.
And I think that's really important to keep in mind when you're conveying, and I'm not saying to clam up or to, man is an island kind of thing, although I believe that to an extent. When you do talk about things like that, it's important to kind of, if you're going to throw that out there, to get, kind of 2 or 3 different opinions of, from that. But a mentor is a huge, huge, blessing to have, right? Like, to have the blessing of somebody that can, and, even through watching, you got to be careful with this, but, even through watching people like Brian's Lawn Maintenance on his YouTube, or, our channel, or Andy Moeller, you name it, like, it's also a good point to kind of get the idea of, like, well, what is the consensus here? And it seems like, it's a dangerous thing to use Instagram as a reference for things like that, because, man, mostly it's only the highlight reel, as Brian has a podcast episode about the highlight reel and the dangers of the highlight reel. Folks rarely post their L's, man. It's usually all the W's, and that's a dangerous place to get your advice or your inspiration too, by the way, right? But a mentorship's a big deal, and what I tell people, like, probably the best, if you don't have any mentors in your life, probably one of the best places, as everybody listening, probably everyone listening here is in service business of some kind. They know they have a few clients that seem to be doing well and seem to run a business that seems okay. You want to check and make sure that their values align with your values. I would say that's important. And then reach out to them and say, hey, I like what you're doing in your life. And you word this in a way that's it'll be flattering to them, or complimentary, really. But you say, I like what you've done in your life and where you're at and what you've achieved. I'm trying to get there myself, but I'm having trouble. What advice would you have for me? And I think most folks, you would be blown away by the response you get from that, as to ask someone that question. I've kind of just happened into, I guess, a lot of mentorships, and probably mostly folks that don't even know they're mentors to me. I treat it as such. They just don't know it. And I could list a handful of names of guys that I really look up to. And when they talk, I listen. I shut up. And I listen, which is hard to believe that I would shut up ever. But there are times that I am very quiet, and it is beneficial, right? They say, even a fool is deemed, I'm going straight biblical on you here now. Even a fool is perceived as wise if he keeps his mouth shut. And so, just even keep your mouth shut can make people think that you're, some wise character out there. If you just be quiet. Now, it's better for the world to think you're a fool than to open your mouth and prove it. That's a whole nother saying there that I love. So keep your mouth shut. I think it's kind of really just the, like those guys from, those 2 attorneys were on Instagram a long time ago. They were, if you get pulled over, what do? You shut the F up. That was their advice always. Shut the F up. That is great advice. Shut up. In most cases, it's best to just be quiet. So it'd be tough if you're a podcast host if you really had that attitude. The whole show would be that. It'd be kind of like crazy. Britt's zipping up. Britt just gave me the zip up thing. So that means either be quiet or she's finally zipping her mouth. I don't know. What's up, Britt? I went on a little tangent there, a little tear. What's up?
Just listening.
Yeah, absorbing all this brilliance. Yes, emanating and spewing.
It really is
from
hard
my
to do
vocal
every
cords.
day. So much greatness.
Who does all the greatness?
You, of course.
That's right. That was a trick question. I was just testing you. All right, Britt, is this thing over? Because the listeners got to be like, God, turn this thing off. Shut this thing
Unsubscribe.
down. Yeah, Brian's viewership goes down. Man, Almonds really tanked the boat there, didn't they? Whew, sorry. Britt, what's the takeaways then? Because I don't think we talked on anything Brian asked us to talk about.
The takeaway number 1 is we
We're
should
good
be better friends.
Well, good luck with that.
Takeaway number 2, we talked about delegating. We
strayed a long
we
ways,
talked
didn't
about
we?
delegating, knowing your numbers,
Yeah, that's
finding a mentor.
and delegating, by the way, too.
I know, after this podcast, you'll have the best business ever.
Yeah, think about it. But back to the delegating thing real quick. Delegating is one of those things.
I know because I've watched you for the past 10 years. The company has slowly grown the more you've been willing to let others do.
Which is funny.
And I was a big push for you to let our foreman.
But you're going to pick this fight. You say that, but at the same time, I've always been good. I've been a good delegator in different ways than what you have seen or what you have picked up on. Because I've always been good about turning the guys loose, but I still held their hand more than I should have when it came to things like handling phone calls from them of like ordering gravel and crap like that. So where you're seeing delegation come from and where I'm seeing delegation come from is a whole other thing. I was always happy to turn guys loose on projects and me not be there. So that's delegation to me.
Right.
Now, if they needed more mulch, they'd be like, hey, we're 4 yards short on mulch. I would call the mulch yard and order 4 more yards mulch. That's stupid. I just didn't actually realize that was something I could and should delegate.
That's specifically what I'm referring to.
I know. Well, I'm bringing this back because I am a good delegator. I've always been a good delegator. I just didn't realize I didn't have to, and I was never a micromanager either. But there were just little things like that I never realized that I could delegate to my crew, I guess. And you know why I think that is because I didn't realize, probably didn't respect my company and myself, respect my company enough to actually put my people in actual like true management positions. That's probably more of the thing I didn't see as a businessman was like, I can grow my company by making people actual managers of their own division, and I don't have to deal with all that little decision stuff, and I can focus on big decision stuff, which is where that gets us as a whole as a company going farther. But you're right. I used to hold hands way too much because I would get a text, hey, we're 5 tons on gravel short. All right, I'll call a supplier, get 5 tons on the way. No, there's no effing reason I should be doing that. That should be a project manager's job of like, get that freaking gravel there. Don't bother me for that kind of stuff. And that takes time, by the way, to get a foreman to that level. And that takes systems and protocols and learning from those things and not getting mad at your people when they make executive decisions and it's wrong or not how you would have done it. That's a big thing. And a podcast I would probably point you to would be one that we did called Extreme Ownership, Extreme Delegation, Fail. Or something like that. I forget what it was. And you'll find many like this on Brian's podcast too, I'm sure. But it's a big, when you delegate to people, you've got to accept the fact that they're going to make the wrong decision sometimes, or a lot of times. And it's all how you work through that and how you coach them through that. And you set policy of like, okay, well, when this happens, we do this. When X happens, we do Y. When B happens, we do C.
Everything's a learning experience.
Everything is a freaking learning experience. And
shame on you if you don't address it.
Yeah, and you can't sweep it under the rug. You've got to man up,
because
stand
no one
up.
can get better if they don't know what they're trying to get better at.
1,000%. And so if you're going to be, and so that's where leadership comes into play. So if you're a good leader, you're not going to get visibly mad and flustered and fly off the handle and yell at your guys and all that crap. You pull that kind of crap, you won't have people working for you for long at all. And if you have trouble keeping people working for you,
you're going to be the extreme owner at that point.
This is a tough pill for a lot of people to swallow. If you're having employee problems, you probably should look inside first. That's a tough pill for people to swallow. But chances are, what I'm going to say is you have to be someone that you would want to work for. And so if you're an OCD, pain in the rear, I don't know how much I can curse on this thing. It's supposed to be unfiltered, but I don't know how unfiltered it is, so I got to be careful there. Although I get on here and swear, I think, more than anybody. But you've got to be somebody you would want to work for. So you've got to understand, like, when you go and screw up and what may be a minuscule mess up to you, like, how could somebody screw that up? People see things from different perspectives, i.e. my wife across the room just saying her perception of what my bad delegation failures were versus what I perceived my delegation
it wasn't bad
accomplishments
delegation.
as.
It was just something that I don't think you'd ever strived for, really.
Well, I just told you that. Yeah, I didn't realize that I could actually make my company into a place where I could actually have managers make field decisions. It wasn't even field decisions. It was just little crap of, like, I trusted their field decisions. It was actually just little crap of, like, they need to call the suppliers to order a few more yards of mulch, or when to schedule the pavers to show up. Like, that kind of crap I don't touch. I do not want to deal with that crap anymore. It's just not where we're at as a company, because if I deal with that stuff, I can't find the next 6-figure project. I can't find the next general contractor that we want to work under for stormwater work. I can't be chief visionary guy or find the next truck or where we're going as a whole as a company. Like, the visionary of a company is a big deal.
And
Greg Whitstock's a great example of this.
Handing those tasks off to your guys deserves a pay raise. If they're taking extra responsibility in their job description, they should get a raise for that.
Right. And that's a whole nother podcast. 1,000 billion podcasts on all that kind of stuff.
That comes down to job descriptions and job.
Yeah, I mean, it's just all evolve how you evolve as a company. It just takes time. But the number one thing with that stuff is you've got to be somebody you would want to work for, first and foremost. And so if your guys feel like they're going to be in deep trouble every time they screw up, that is not good company culture. That's not a good place to be. Like, we're probably too loose with it, but man, every time our guys screw up, here's the way I looked at it from day one when I started the company. I knew from day one how much stuff I messed up on a weekly basis of, like, mowing, like, I hit the freaking mailbox with the mower, or, like, ran over Mrs. Herfenerbler's lawn sprinkler head, or whatever the heck. And I just knew every person I hired would make little petty mistakes like that. And so it just compounds. And so you turn your guys loose. No, it doesn't mean you don't have standards and expectations of that kind of stuff, but you've also got to accept just the human error factor, right? That's just going to happen.
I think we might be too laid back on that, though. I think some of our guys get upset with us that we don't care a lot when someone else does something wrong that affects their job.
Yeah, I mean, there's that argument to be made, without a doubt. And so internally as a company, we're working on that.
Hopefully your employees are passionate about their job or passionate about the work that they're doing. And when someone else messes it up or does something, and then the owner is like, it happens, like, it sucks, but we just got to move on. That's not necessarily what the employee wanted to hear.
Well, and that takes a conversation, because you also got to say, hey, look, I know you wanted me to go out, to get on so-and-so about so-and-so, but remember when you did this and you did that was kind of an equal mistake, just a higher dollar value of mistake. And so I always look at it from that of, like, don't forget we all live in glass houses here, folks. And so, but you got to remember, not everybody sees the world as if they are the one living in the glass house. I know I live in a glass house, I guess is the way I look at it. But I got to realize, like, not everybody looks at that way and has that same level of introspection.
And here's the next thing. Communication is important in your company.
Yeah, in your career, in your family, in your marriage, in your relationship, you name it. Communication is the number one thing. 2 books. And I think we need to get out of here, Brett. How to Win
Friends and Influence People.
The Dale Carnegie Classic. You must read that. The second one is The Richest Man in Babylon. That is a phenomenal book as well. You must read that. And if nothing else, read the book of Proverbs in the Bible. Pick your version of choice. Myself, it's the New King James Version. I really enjoy that one. Proverbs is just great life advice, if nothing else. Even if you don't believe in God or Jesus or any of that stuff, it's just solid life advice. If you put a different author's name on it, it'd be heralded as the best book ever, probably. Folks, with that being said, here on the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast, guest speakers, Brittany Nicole, which is Britt's stage name. That's an inside joke, but she actually doesn't have a stage name.
And we'll see everyone at Entrepreneur Live.
Yeah, in Novi, Michigan in November or something. And we're a speaker there. I don't even know the date of the thing. It's the 13th, isn't it? Yeah. Lucky 13. If I just remember that, that's how I got imprinted in my head. Lucky 13. Remember that
Great
year?
show, great speakers.
Probably one of the worst experiences
Minus
of my
us.
life was we were in Miami, Florida for a week for a conference thing. And then we flew from there to Detroit in a snowstorm. I'm like, what am I doing with my life? This is horrible. I should be in Florida all winter. So that's part of the goals of retirement life there, I suppose. Maybe. I don't know about that really fully. Anyhow, but man, that Launchpreneur Academy Live was a phenomenal event. God, that was good. Look forward to seeing you folks there. GIE here in a couple weeks. I don't know if this will post before now and then, or it may never. Here, our audio waves may never be broadcast out into the vast vacuum of space. Who knows? Folks, thanks for listening in. If you made it this far, you're real troopers. Or you must be chained to the wall or something. And this is played as torture music in the background or something. I don't know. This is how they get information out of the Taliban at Guantanamo. They just play our podcast. They're like, I'll talk. I'll say anything. I'll tell you anything.
Brian will release this on like Christmas Day when no one else listens.
When nobody listens. He's like, yeah, I need a junk filler episode. Here we go. All right. So the fourth exit from the podcast here. Folks, thanks for checking it out. Brian said to plug our own stuff at the end, but we did a pretty good job all the way through.
Pitch Fest podcast.
Yeah. So check us out. Auman Landscape on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Snapchat, Twitter, all that junk.
Have a great day, guys.
The Hardscape Academy. And
have a great day, guys.
And I was gonna plug one other thing. But I forget what it was because you're interrupting. All right, folks, Caleb and Brittany Auman, we're out of here. Thanks so much. Be diligent and be wise. We'll see you.
Calling all landscape pros who want to get serious about healthy turf and a healthier bottom line. It's time to throw down new innovations. Built on 50 years of proven agronomic proficiency, Lesco fertilizers, control products, seed, and equipment are engineered to produce more resilient turf. We'll continue to bring new technologies, so no matter the day, you'll always bring your A game. Upgrade and outperform with Lesco. Visit siteone.com/Lesco today to learn more.
Thanks for taking the time to listen to the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast with Brian Fullerton. We hope you enjoyed this production. If so, please consider leaving us a 5-star review for the show. While the techniques and ideas presented here are designed to help you grow a more successful and profitable business, no one can guarantee these results for you. We want to emphasize that entrepreneurship is not easy, and the ideas presented here are just the opinions of Brian Fullerton and his respective guests. No one can guarantee success for you. That being said, we hope the ideas presented here help you and motivate you to go on out there and crush it with your own business.
Fullerton Unfiltered Podcast.
Thanks for listening, and we hope to see you on the next episode.
This has been a Brian Fullerton and Mr. Producer production.